Hello everybody and welcome to Who Wore It Better, the weekly segment in which I review Raw and SmackDown back to back and try and figure out which show won for the week. And folks, let me just say right off the bat, this is going to be the toughest one for me yet. It's going to be the toughest for me to try and pick a winner because both shows were on very equal footing. Both shows had a lot of strengths, both shows had some weaknesses, things I liked, things I didn't like. So it's going to be very tough this week for me to find a winner. And either way, I'm going to piss some people off. So let's just get it over with. First match of the night, Chris Jericho and Adrian Neville. Great match. Fantastic match. I loved it. When I was watching it, I felt like I was taken back in time to 1998, watching an episode of Nitro with the Cruiserweights, right down to the Lion Tamer as a finisher. I love when Jericho busts out. Every 2 or 3 years or so, he busts out the Lion Tamer and on people who are small and flexible enough to take the move. Not everyone can take it, and so when Jericho does it, it's a big moment. And the thing is, when Jericho puts on the walls of Jericho, that rarely, if ever, wins a match. But when he puts on the Lion Tamer, that is the finisher. And so that's a great way to end that match. The one thing I wish they had done differently with this match, nothing to do with the wrestlers, but everything to do with the announcers. The fact the last time these two were fighting one-on-one in the ring, Neville broke his ankle. I really wish they had incorporated that into their heat and the build-up for this match, or at least in the storytelling the announcers were doing. They didn't mention it once as far as I could tell. But other than that, it was a great match, and that didn't take much away from it. You're once, twice, 3 times a jobber. You had 3 squash matches on one night on Monday. You had Nia Jax taking on a local, you had Sami Zayn beating Jinder Mahal, and you had Braun Strowman destroying Mike the Maleficent Love Machine 2099. 3 squash matches in a single show, to me, is too much. And yes, it's 3 hours long. And if you put 1 squash match in each hour, then that would be a little more acceptable. But you had 2 of them back-to-back in the first hour. And to me, that's just a little too much. The thing I'm wondering with Nia Jax and Braun Strowman is when are we going to see these two in any kind of real, something meaty kind of storyline, something they could sink their teeth into. Nia Jax and Braun Strowman beating up jobbers is fun for a while, but it's starting to get a little old, the fact that they're the only ones doing this. Like when, people have been saying in the comment section, let them form a power couple, a jobber squash and power couple. I'd like to see that. Or maybe just put them in some kind of storyline. Let there be a payoff to this. I think it's time for them to wrap this up. The New Day and Bayley taking on Anderson, Gallows, and Dana Brooke in what was a really fun 6-person mixed tag team match. It was a lot of fun. Everyone got their stuff in. It was really fun to watch. I do like the fact that Anderson and Gallows are still doing the backstage promos and doing the kind of crass humor and everything. They went from being doctors, talking about retirement specialists. I'm really curious to see where the whole Dana Brooke, Anderson, Gallows alliance. I don't know if it's going to be a one-night thing or Dana Brooke's going to bop back and forth between them and Charlotte, or maybe a super group will form. I don't know. But the concept of Dana Brooke working with Anderson and Gallows on Monday night, to me, it piqued my interest, and I'm curious to see if they continue that relationship down the line. Cesaro and Sheamus in match 2 of their best-of-7 series. Not much for me to say about the match other than it was good, and I like the finish. The fact that Cesaro going into the steel ring post, that bump to me looked really sick. And of course, Sheamus is now up 2-0. The one random thought I had watching this was, does MGM have the right to sue WWE over that entrance for Cesaro? I mean, it's very clearly James Bond is what they're ripping off here, but now they literally have the same gun barrel effect from the intro. Before they had the whole gun barrel thing, it was just like the white circle, and now it's this whole 3D gun barrel thing with Cesaro walking through it. I mean, to me, isn't that intellectual property? Doesn't MGM have the grounds to sue the company over that? Just a random thought. Let me know what you think. The Stephanie Paul Heyman segment. This was a weird segment with some goods and bads all peppered into one thing. There was a little bit of storyline advancement at the very end, which I'll get to in a second, but other than that, it didn't really do much for me. I did like Paul Heyman pulling up the giant stack of money, the $1 bills. That was hilarious. That really should be his gimmick. I want him just to carry around, instead of a giant cell phone, I want him to carry around a giant stack of ones and just throw them at people he doesn't like. It just gave Stephanie a chance to yell at Paul Heyman a little bit and throw a little more dirt onto the grave of ECW like she did at the top when they were chanting it and her response. And Paul Heyman's kind of sheepishly apologizing. And then when she walks away, you see Paul Heyman do this weird, oh my God, Paul, don't do this face anymore. The thing where he's smiling, but he's got his tongue, like that. Oh, that was a really ugly face. They had a super tight close-up on that. I really don't want him to make that face anymore. But you could tell from the body language, his apology was not that sincere. It's building to something more. And who knows where it's going to go from here. But that segment to me was just kind of a downer. Titus O'Neil versus Darren Young. Titus beats his ass for 5 minutes, and Darren wins out of nowhere with a crucifix pin. End this already. Main event time, the Fatal 4-Way to determine the new Universal Champion. I talked about this at length in my video I posted yesterday about Kevin Owens winning the belt, so I'm not going to go into detail about the match here in this review. I will repeat myself, though, saying it was a very good match. I loved the finish. I thought it was a great way to end the show. A lot of intrigue, a lot of mystery going into next week. I had a lot of people on social media in the last 24, 36 hours asking me, Brian, shouldn't Kevin Owens have won the title clean? Doesn't it make him look bad that he had Triple H do all the work for him? No, it doesn't, because Kevin Owens is booked as a heel. You might cheer for him and fans might cheer for him, but at the end of the day, he is booked as a heel, and that's just the way it is. You know, you can't have it both ways as fans, because people have been berating me for a long time saying, I'll cheer and boo whoever I want. I love cheer for Kevin Owens, even though he's a bad guy, but you can't have that mentality and be, why doesn't he win the title clean? Because he's a heel, and that's, you know, if he were a face, then yes, absolutely, I would agree with you that he won the title in a very weak manner. But he's not a face. He's a heel, and that's the way heels win championships. I mean, Seth Rollins, yeah, when he won the title at WrestleMania 31, he won like with his finisher, but he basically ran in on the match when both guys were beaten down, which is not a noble, honorable way for him to win. So Kevin Owens winning the match the way he did, winning the title, I don't have a problem with it. Now, if they book him the way they booked Seth Rollins the title, then yeah, I think over time you could say he's not being booked that great. But time's going to tell on Kevin Owens' championship reign, and for the time being, I think the way he won it was not a terrible thing. It's a SmackDown time. The show opens up with a recap of Talking Smack from last week, in which The Miz says he loves everyone and everything in the promo of his life. And then The Miz comes out to the live crowd and echoes a lot of the same sentiments. Basically says, I do all this work for the company, I bust my ass, you know, don't boo me, that sort of thing. So yeah, again, very passionate promo by The Miz. Then Dolph Ziggler comes out, interrupts him, saying, if you don't want to be considered a coward, fight me, and then The Miz backs off, and now it's going to lead, now the match has been signed for the two of them at Backlash. My one gripe with this is the fact that they were advertising Daniel Bryan will address what happened on Talking Smack. And really all you saw Daniel Bryan do was there was a pre-tape thing with him and Shane saying, yep, I guess I'll just keep it to myself next time. And that was all that happened with Daniel Bryan. I was expecting something where Daniel Bryan comes out to the ring and they talk about it more in the ring, but they didn't do that. And so now Dolph Ziggler is kind of this proxy for Daniel Bryan, which makes you wonder if the payoff is not going to include Daniel Bryan getting back in the ring because he's retired, he's got a big brain injury, then why have The Miz cut the promo on Daniel Bryan at all? To me, it makes no sense. The fact that Bryan started this thing, but he's not going to be involved, it seems, in the match itself and in the build at all. Like, it was so quickly swept away. The Hype Bros and the Vaudevillains in a very quick match for the tag title tournament. I didn't see much of the Hype Bros together as a tag team in NXT, so my sample size for them is very small. And what I have seen of Mojo Rawley as a singles guy, I was never really impressed with, but I liked how they were in this very short match. I think Mojo Rawley, some of the stiffest, snuggest looking attacks I've ever seen in the build up to the finish and everything, and them winning. As long as he doesn't do that running sit-down thing that Earthquake made famous years ago, as long as he doesn't do that anymore, because it looks really stupid coming from him, that's fine with me. Apollo Crews versus AJ Styles in what was my favorite match on Tuesday night. Apollo Crews busting out all of his high-flying acrobatic moves, pulling out all the stops against AJ Styles, looked very good in defeat. This is my favorite match I've seen him in since he's been on the main roster. It's a much better look for him than the little lackluster thing he did with the IC title with The Miz last month. And, this is a really good match. AJ Styles looks very strong. Apollo Crews looks very strong. Now, as long as Apollo Crews stops spelling things, I think we'll be in the right direction. You can't have a guy like Apollo Crews, this big, jacked dude with no neck, and you can't have him smiling all the time and spelling things. To me, it's like you got to give him more of an edge than that. The Heath Slater single-wide interview segment, to me, I thought that was a great bit. I loved Silent Rhino eating the cheese whiz and the crackers. I thought it was hilarious. Heath Slater was great. Renee Young's facial expressions, her just getting more and more annoyed by all of the madness around her. That was great. To me, the whole segment was very reminiscent of like a Mean Gene segment where he'd go on location to, the jungle and find the bushwhackers, or, deepest, darkest Africa and find Slick and Akeem. I thought it was very reminiscent of that stuff. I want to see more of that, actually. It was pretty funny. The one thing I'll say is the actress playing Heath Slater's wife was just the worst. And I know what they were trying to go for here, but to me it was just like kind of insulting. It was just this terrible stereotype. It's like I get the fact that Heath Slater is supposed to be kind of down south white trash kind of gimmick, but the wife to me was just too much. It was too on the nose. But that was a small nitpick in what was an otherwise very fun segment. Bray Wyatt's Sermon for the Serpent. Again, fantastic promo by Bray Wyatt, but that's what he is. He's a great promo, but he gets beaten big matches. That's the perception of Bray Wyatt. I want that to change when they had their match at Backlash. But anyway, Orton comes out, interrupts him, cuts a pretty good promo of his own, talking about his match with Cactus Jack and his time with The Undertaker at Hell in a Cell, talks about the internal scars. I thought it was a great promo. The one thing was, I think there was a production botch because Orton slid in the ring to confront Bray Wyatt. It goes to black, and I was expecting the lights to come up and Orton would be in the ring by himself, but instead they go to the next match screen showing the women's tag team match, and I was like, were they supposed to do that? It seems like it was kind of a weird ending, the fact that it just went away and it went to black and, oh, the segment's over. Don't know what happened to Orton. To me, that felt like it was a bit of a botch. Bit of a sour ending to what was an otherwise very strong segment. Natalya and Alexa Bliss taking on Naomi and Becky Lynch in the build toward Backlash, where the 6 women are going to fight for the new Women's Championship. The match ended when the heels got over because Becky Lynch was distracted by Carmella and Nikki Bella fighting outside the ring when Nikki was doing commentary. A few people got mad at me in the comments section last week on Who Wore It Better because I glossed over the double turn, and really I glossed over it because I didn't care. I don't care about either of these women. Carmella, I never really watched her in NXT, and when she was on SmackDown after the draft, she didn't really blow me away. She was okay. She moonwalks, comes out to an Iggy Azalea sounding song, and she cops Enzo and Cass's gimmick. Yay, and so when she turned, with what sounded like really no motivation or no reasoning behind it last week, didn't make me care. And against Nikki Bella, who I don't really care about, okay, there you go. It's kind of a non-issue. And really, they haven't done a very good job explaining why she turned heel. They said in the commentary near the end, oh, Carmella's mad because Nikki Bella upstaged her homecoming at Brooklyn. Like, okay, why are they telling us on commentary? Why has Carmella not cut a promo? It's like they could have done a much better job explaining this heel turn by Carmella. I just don't care. Tag title tournament, Heath Slater and Rhino taking on the Headbangers. Never thought I'd say that sentence in 2016, but it was a fun little match. I was disappointed the Headbangers didn't come out to their original music. They came out to this generic rock thing that was totally different than their original song. Also, I was disappointed in the little side factoids when they came out saying, Mosh and Thrasher are from New Jersey. They were part of the Attitude Era. They were also 2-time tag champs. Don't know if that was worth mentioning or not. Thought that was a little interesting. And the fact they're back at all, it's the weirdest throwback, the weirdest one-off I've ever seen. I don't know if Road Dogg, who writes for SmackDown, I don't know if he owed them a favor or what, but it was just a really weird thing seeing them come back. They looked good, though. They still work together in the indies all the time, so they're not, totally rusty. And their spots are really good. Mosh busting open Rhino somehow. I don't know how that happened. Just hit him once on the apron and Rhino's gushing. That was really bizarre. And the finish to me was a little rushed, but it was what it was. And Rhino and Heath Slater advance and continue their storyline. I don't know if we'll see more of the Headbangers in the future, but it was a very interesting comeback for them. So, a good segment for me. Dean Ambrose versus Baron Corbin, but first, a wild jobber appears. Who is Gary the Milkman Millman? I did not get that segment at all. Now, the name was a clear throwback to Larry the Milkman Millman, the AWA jobber, whose greatest career highlight was fighting Colonel LeBeers in a turkey on a pole match in an empty pink warehouse in AWA and winning. But yeah, Milkman strips down to his skivvies, tribute to the Mongolian wrestling coaches at the Olympics this year. Kane comes out, chokeslams him, that's it. What the hell was that segment for? But yeah, Dean Ambrose, Baron Corbin in the main event. I thought it was a fun match. I had no complaints about that one. Baron Corbin was really good. I thought it was interesting the announcers kept harping on the fact this is the first time ever these two have fought. I'm like, yeah? So, maybe if they spent more time building Corbin to be a legitimate threat, then yeah, I would buy into that hype a little more. But for me, it was like, okay, it's just Dean Ambrose fighting a guy he's probably going to beat. There you go. Good match overall. AJ Styles coming in and causing the match to end in a disqualification. Styles with the funniest, most prolonged sell being crotched on the ropes ever, and that was pretty much the end of the segment. So Baron Corbin's going to be at Kalisto for 2-3 weeks and not going to be involved in the finish for this match. Okay, that was a little curious, but there you go. So here we are, the moment of truth. Who wore it better, Raw or SmackDown? Folks, I put an inordinate amount of time and thought into this decision. Because last week I was crucified for saying Raw was better than SmackDown. And I don't want to get that kind of backlash again. Either way, I'm going to piss people off. Because Raw, you had some good matches, and you also had Kevin Owens winning the title in dramatic fashion. And that was really cool. But it was also bogged down by 3 pointless jobber squashes, a lot of filler time with these promo packages for the Universal title match, and, of course, Titus O'Neil. Meanwhile, on SmackDown, you had an overall beginning to end more entertaining show, but nothing really stood out to me going, wow, that moment was amazing. So really, who do I pick? Who do I pick? You know, do I piss off all the Kevin Owens fans by saying SmackDown was better? Do I piss off the SmackDown fans by saying Raw was better? I don't know. Folks, I gotta go with SmackDown winning this week. You know, Kevin Owens winning the title at the end of Raw was a fantastic moment. Easily one of the biggest moments of the year so far. But it was one shining beacon in an otherwise meh kind of show. The really one negative thing I had to say about Raw was Titus O'Neil. Everything else, you could take it or leave it. SmackDown, like I said, it was a more consistently interesting show. Even though there were no groundbreaking moments like Triple H coming back and pedigreeing Seth Rollins, it was still a more fun show to watch. You had the Headbangers, which even though they weren't the most amazing guys in the world, you know, fun to see them come back. You had a fun AJ Styles Apollo Crews match. You had a really humorous Heath Slater pre-tape with Rhino silently eating crackers and Cheese Whiz. You know, I think SmackDown was a stronger show this week. And Kevin Owens winning the title was greater than the sum of everything else happening in Monday Night Raw. So I have to go say SmackDown was the better show. Please don't kill me. Let me know which show you thought was better in the comments section below. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. And hey, tomorrow, folks, Season 6 premiere, The Brawl for All. You're going to appreciate this one, bro. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.